You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thankful Thursday. Thankful Thursday. And we got a sound effect for that. Play it.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you!
There you go. Thankful Thursday. And even though it's not always about the food, somehow we even had food incorporated in that sound effect. It's just struck me. JP on the board. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Are you telling me you're not thankful for the delicious, bountiful harvest of KFC, Taco Bell? What was the others?
There's got to be Chick-fil-A. There was no Chick-fil-A?
Nah, Chick-fil-A is too healthy of the fast food places.
I'm not sure, but I think when manna fell from heaven, it might have been chicken minis.
I agree with that.
Although that has meat in it, and there was no meat, so I don't know. I can't explain it. I just feel like it's possible. All right, hey, we got a great show lined up for you coming up at the halfway through the second hour. You know the deal. It's Thursday, so yeah, we'll have a round of Butters and Lee. So Butters and Lee halfway through hour number 2. Stand by for that one, and then y'all, I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, we're going to spend a little time being military-minded. Military-minded. I got news, I got facts, I got figures. Yep, we're going to talk about all things military, running the gamut from stuff happening on the world stage to what's happening with our U.S. military. That's number 1, Triple Dipper, military-minded. Number 2, oh man, there's some news on Ukraine. It's getting dwarfed by some other news right now, but it's still something else. We're going to talk about it. What's happening in Ukraine, and oh, by the way, surrounding areas of Europe. We'll talk about that. And then number 3, you know, there's just like piles and piles of jackassery. Piles and piles of jackassery everywhere you look. And so I'm saying, okay, here's the bottom line. We got to do a whole dipper on this. So yeah, I do. I have a pile of dipper stuff called jackassery. And then that's just like going to happen left and right. Did you even play the sound effect for Triple Dipper?
I didn't want to cut you off on the Triple Dipper. Oh, the Triple Dipper sound. Yes, I played that sound effect. I did.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask if I played the jackassery sound effect.
That's what it was.
I was like,
no, don't play that right now.
No.
All right. Let me jump on into the Right Side Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys the Right Side Way brought to you every single day by attorney Stan McDonald. Yeah, Stan McDonald. He's a law partner at Wilmer & Lee up in Huntsville. Been practicing for 30 years, and he is the daily sponsor of the Right Side Way monologue. I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. So yesterday we spent some time talking through Trump's first 100 days, right? We asked all of you to give your favorite and least favorite things about the first 100 days of Trump 2.0, and the feedback came flooding in. Lots of high points, and I'd say the border being controlled was, generally speaking, the number 1 favorite of the Right Side audience. The least favorite thing kind of ran the gamut, but one thing I did not expect, though, was the number of people who expressed that their least favorite thing about Trump's first 3 months is that no one's gone to jail yet. There's apparently a desire out there to see a bunch of perp walks, like that will somehow put salve on the wounds that we need to see. For some, it was the Epstein perpetrators. I get that. For others, it's FBI or somebody in Jan 6 Commission or the Biden administration members themselves. I get it, though. I do. And I will agree on the one hand that if somebody committed an actual crime, that I want to see them behind bars myself. I'm an attorney. I love the rule of law. I love the fact that we are a nation of laws, and I despise those who would flaunt the laws for their own gain. But there's a process, a real process. A process that we should all want for ourselves if we ever found ourselves in trouble with the law. There's also, by the way, an image. I mean, I don't want all things they said about Trump being vengeful or roguish or a disrespecter of the law or a tyrant. I don't want to give the left any fuel to burn. I believe that sooner or later, someone's going to walk that walk of shame on any number of issues. And it'll take finding the actual evidence, though, not just finding ourselves with a good mad, because a good mad doesn't stand up in court. See, the left is determined to make us out to be the cult followers of a grand dictator. They call us Nazis, they call us sycophants, and we're not. We have to sometimes take the time and put in the effort to flip that script, to actually confront the lies, though, and lay out the truth, to get the evidence first, to get the indictments, to get all the legal ducks in a row, to make our ironclad case, which they never do, but we will. Because if we don't, then we're no better than Adam Schiff, who swore he saw the Russia collusion evidence that never existed, or Adam Kinzinger, who swore that January 6th was an actual insurrection and then worked thereafter to ruin people's lives, or Merrick Garland, who arrested grandmothers for praying in front of abortion clinics. So as I was thinking all this through, I was reminded of something that happened many moons ago in college. It was University of South Alabama in the mid-'80s, spring of 1986, if I recall. I was very involved in campus activities, and I was also serving at the time as the vice president for student government. I've told this story before, but it's been quite a while, but let me just back up and tell you again. There came a day on the campus when this guy showed up, going by the name of Brother Jim. Brother Jim, like I said, I've told you about him before, and he was one weird dude. He was an odd bird, professed to be an evangelist of some type. What he really amounted to, though, was a rabble-rouser. He had a Bible in his hand. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for laying it out strong like John the Baptist, but this guy was not that guy. He was just weird. As he stood there in the student commons for days, yelling at students, calling them names, waving his Bible in the air, even hissing at them, all the while claiming that God did not love them until they repented of their evil ways. Meanwhile, his chosen means of spreading the good news about God's love for the world was to demean and belittle and criticize and just generally act the fool. Not only that, but he just looked like somebody who was not right in the head. You know what I'm saying? He looked like Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation showed up with a mean streak and a Bible. And to say, though, that he drew a crowd was an understatement. For some of the hundreds who came daily to hear his diatribes, it was like comedy. They laughed and mocked him. To others, it was disturbing. To me, it just made me mad. I felt like he was making a mockery of my God. Well, I wanted him gone. I was the vice president of student government, and I was ready to call for his head. I wanted campus security to haul him away while everybody watched. In my opinion, he was making God look like a goober, and I was having none of it. He was absolutely creating the wrong image and portraying nothing of the God who so loved the world that he gave his only son. So I talked with campus authorities. And the deal came down to the fact that the Student Government Association had the authority to request his removal. But he was otherwise not breaking any laws, they said. Okay. Well, like I said, I was the vice president of the student government. And then it ramped up, though. It ramped up when my sweet fiancée at the time, Charlene, who I've now been married to for over 38 years, was walking past the commons where Brother Jim was preaching one day, spotted her wearing something he did not approve of, and yelled out, "You hussy!" Called on her to repent, never knowing for a minute that she had already loved the Lord and was already serving as a volunteer leader with Young Life Ministries and changing kids' lives. Well, that did it for me. I got my friend Mike on the phone, and Mike was the president of SGA, and I was the vice president. I said, "Mike, we got to do something. He needs to go." But to my surprise, Mike refused. He said, "Phil, I can't stand him either, but he's got a constitutional right to say those things. There's no law being broken here. If we kick him off the campus, who's next?" It didn't matter how many ill-advised "yeah, buts" I had in the conversation. Mike held firm and he would not agree. And then he said something, though, that really struck a chord with me, one that I've never forgotten. He said, "Phil, if you believe he's wrong, then go out there tomorrow and counter his message. People will listen to you. You got as much right to speak as he does." Well, I didn't want to, though. I just wanted him canceled. But I couldn't argue anymore because it hit me that Mike was right. In a way, I was right, but what hit me right then was it's possible to be right and still be wrong. So I geared up, I prayed up, and I studied up. I literally tabbed my own Bible, made notes, and studied and asked some other people to be giving me advice and to pray at a certain time. And the next day, I was about as nervous as a pig in a bacon factory. But I went down to the Commons, and sure enough, there was old Brother Jim. And as he yelled and accused and threatened people in the name of God, I walked out in front of all those students, several hundred at the time, although it felt like thousands. And I walked up to Brother Jim, and he literally Y'all, I kid you not, he hissed at me. Like he crouched down a little bit and he pointed his finger and he hissed like a cat. It was weird, man. And I asked the crowd if they wanted to hear what the Bible really had to say about how God feels about us. Well, the crowd went nuts. And so I read a few verses. And then Brother Jim screamed at me. And then I read some more. And this went on for like 10 or 15 minutes until finally him screaming and yelling and then me reading scripture, Brother Jim threw his hands up in the air and literally walked away. And if I recall, he left the campus that day and we never saw him again. Some say he was a guy that's pulling a stunt, like that his whole shtick was designed to somehow get people to speak up. I don't think so. I think he had a message that was wrong and it took a message that was right to counter it. Well, here's why I say all of that. Because what I learned that day is that as badly as I wanted the ranks of conservatism to grow or Christianity to grow, that it won't ever grow by virtue of cancel culture. I wanted Brother Jim gone. I wanted him canceled. I wanted him kaput. But my friend Mike, who was a former Ranger bat guy, my friend Mike reminded me that what was really needed, though, was just a healthy dose of truth. That truth is always the greatest defense to the lie, but that a truth left untold has no value. And the truth must make it into the public sphere, into the hearing of others for it to take root and do any good at all. Now, to be sure, how you present it also matters, right? Even the Apostle Paul said that he came to the point that he knew he had to relate to his audience in order to win them over all the more. Not that his message ever changed, just that he made sure he presented in a way that his audience could receive it. But oh, by the way, it doesn't mean that you'll also persuade everyone. You can get over that idea. There are those who are so entrenched in their lies and their misdeeds that it doesn't matter what you say or do, but nonetheless, you still need to say or do. I believe, though, there are those who are still in the majority right now, the more of us than there are of them, that simply want to know the truth, and it might take you or I speaking it. It might take us patiently working through the process to get a true and enforceable indictment for the crimes that we know were perpetrated during the Biden administration. Yes, I believe there were some that were definitely committed, but we got to do it right. We got to lock it in. We got to make it bulletproof so that when the news becomes public and the perp takes their walk, we don't wind up with egg on our faces or give the left just a stronger message to attack us with. And by the way, folks, that cannot happen in 90 days' time. All I know is this: the freedom to be wrong is just as strong in this great nation as the freedom to be right. But in the end, the truth is the right side still to be on. If we don't like a message, if we don't like a cultural shift, if we don't like the mantra of the left, if we believe that someone has committed a crime but we haven't seen the proof yet, then we can't just sit back and wait. We may have to speak up. Speak the truth, see what happens. But here's the bottom line: you still got to do it the right way. Because even when you're right, you can still be wrong. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, so there you have it. Yeah, the guy needed to be canceled, in my opinion. I mean, I still look back on that and think, what? The guy was just, he was nuts. And he was obnoxious. And he was mocking my God. But the truth of the matter is, I really believe that my friend Mike nailed it. It took doing things the right way to get rid of the wrong way. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm saying, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, Attorney Stan McDonald, just a reminder, the Daily Rightside Way monologue brought to you by Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran of the practice of law. I looked over at my military-minded triple dipper. Hang on. Let me just say.
I think Stan would think that's a cool title
He
anyway.
might.
So.
I'm a 30-year veteran of the practice of war. Anyway, he's a great attorney. Good dude and an OG ruffian. And if there's ever been a question whether this is a live speak right there, I just confirmed it for you. So yeah, Stan McDonald has represented his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can represent you in any local, state, or federal court. And when Stan McDonald's on your side, I like to say you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. And I do mean that, by the way. I really do. I know him personally. I think the world of him. So yeah, Attorney Stan McDonald, the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. I'm going to give you his phone number in case you need an attorney in North Alabama because he's the guy. You can call him at this number. You ready? Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Oh, yeah. No organization made the quality legal service be performed with greater quality legal service performed with all lawyers. Shabam! Step back in amazement.
That's probably as close as a 10 you can get right there.
What do you think?
Like a 9.
Say it.
9 at 9.
A 9-9.
9-9-9-8 probably.
Everybody heard you say it. 9-9-8?
9-9 or 9-8. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. Thankful Thursday. What do we got? Brian from Huntsville says, yes, man, I fell from heaven. Remember, God sent the quail also. Yeah, but he sent the quail after they complained and wanted some meat. So what I'm saying is the manna from heaven probably couldn't have been a chicken mini because there weren't no meat in the manna.
It could be chicken mini, the bread, the chicken mini bread.
That is good bread.
Yes, yeah. I think it is. That bread is manna.
I think you can live off that bread.
Probably wouldn't be very healthy, but you could.
No, man. Has holy properties. Allie from Mathis says, Colonel, this is one of my favorite stories of yours. I never get tired of hearing it. Thank you, my friend. So there's nothing more dangerous than a religious spirit, and there's nothing more powerful than the truth mixed with the love of God. You are so correct, Allie. And oh, by the way, don't anybody ever call my sweet little bitty woman a hussy. Just saying. Yeah, I have told that story a couple of times. I will say this, though. It's only my Huntsville audience that knows it because all my Auburn folks, my Chattanooga folks, my North Georgia folks, all of y'all, that's news to you. So John from Huntsville, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, did you hear what Dale Jackson said this morning about tree poisoner Harvey Updike? Uh-oh. Did he have to go there? He said, because if you heard what he said, you might rethink having him as a permanent guest on the Grand Council. By the way, JP, did your Braves really lose to the worst team in baseball last night?
We've won 12 of our last 14, John.
That's not the question.
Don't put a
what was the
dumper
question?
on it.
Anyway.
We won the series. That's all that matters.
Hey, you saw the thing about that guy falling out of the stands.
I did, yeah.
That was at a Pirates game?
Yep.
That was awful.
Yeah.
What, did he just get exuberant and just jumped up and then went over the rail?
That's what it looks like. Last thing I saw was he's in critical condition right now, but I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. Of just the bizarreness of somebody laying it down in right field while play is still going on.
Yeah. They're still running the bases. The outfielder didn't even realize it had happened behind him.
That's scary.
It was awful. Bless him. Connor from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, Connor from Huntsville. Great monologue. Second time in 2 days you've gone what?
Gone yard is like a baseball term for hit a home run.
Oh, I just realized what it was saying.
Yeah,
I was trying to read it. You've gone yard with it. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Connor. Appreciate you. All right, you guys, listen, more to come. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. I mean, it goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains that we like to call Auburn, straight across the border from there to now what we really like to call Fort Benning once again. And then, oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Text lines are indeed open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Got a heads up, by the way, for all of you driving in our Huntsville market. Frank from Huntsville just texted in, said there's an overturned 18-wheeler at the intersection of 565 and I-65. And it's on the 565 piece. So anyway, the bottom line is traffic can be really jimmied up right now near the 565 junction. So y'all be careful. Jeff Rowe from Indiana checking in. He says, hey, Phil, sometimes you don't even need to tell the truth. You just need to say something just as absurd as they're saying. He said, for instance, if someone comes up to you screaming that Trump's cutting Social Security, you need to tell them that, well, we can't do anything about it because without Trump, the moon would fly away and destroy the earth. And when they look at you like you're insane, you tell them your story has as much validity as theirs. That is quite the tactic, brother. I may have to employ it. Scott from Athens says the psychosis that no one wants to talk about, and he sends me a journal from the Journal of Psychiatry, which I'm not going to have time to open or even read right now. But thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Let's stay on topic. All right. So I gotta diverge. I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege. Do you mind? Is it all right?
I will allow it.
Mr. President, I'd like a moment of personal privilege.
Permission granted.
Thank you so much. Well played, sir. So you may have heard there's been a change in the Trump team. The Trump team, which includes Michael Waltz, former congressman from Florida, former Green Beret, combat veteran, he's now out, apparently. Now, we're told, reports are that Michael Waltz is out, and keep in mind it was his team that was the originator of the Signal transmissions, Signal being the app you can communicate on securely, the Signal transmissions that somehow or another included a reporter. That's never been fully explained except as an oops. We're also told that there was no breach of actual classified information, but it was certainly a bad look. It was an awful look. So what precipitated Michael Waltz being out? Well, we can't say for sure, although we do know that apparently it's not just him, but several members of his team. So that broke about, 2 hours ago?
I was around 11 a.m.
Around 11
Yep.
Central? Yeah. So, all right, so 3 hours ago, the word came out. Michael Waltz is out. Trump's already fired him. Michael Waltz has been fired. It's got to be Signalgate. Now I don't know. Because now, in the wake of all of it, you have this. Trump on Truth Social. I am pleased to announce I'll be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. Oh, okay. Well, if you have no confidence in his abilities, why did you put him in a place to represent us to the world governments? So this is an interesting dynamic. The question is going to be, what happens with the other members of his team who are allegedly being let go? If they're going with him because that's part of his team, okay. If it's a cleaning of house and this is a way to put him in a sheltered position where he can do no harm, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think the United Nations is near as high profile as being the National Security Advisor, to be honest. You're a little bit outside of the pocket, if you will. You're not going to be the one on the Signal chats anymore. You're certainly going to have classified information. You're certainly going to be in a key position. You're certainly going to have the honors of and the trappings of the office. But was it a demotion? Was it a lateral move? Because remember, at least Stefanik was supposed to be the UN ambassador to the United Nations, the ambassador of the United Nations for the U.S. And she she actually stepped away from that at Trump's request to maintain her position in Congress because we're so tight on congressional leadership right now. All that to say, I don't know. So here's Phil's thoughts on this. Right now, I would say that Michael Waltz got negative reviews on the Signalgate issue more so than was able to be just cast aside and called a non-issue. I think there's also, to some degree, a sense that, look, that was a really big screw up and we were early and I get it. There was a problem and we don't know how it happened. But somebody please tell me why you even had that reporter's number in your Rolodex. Why did that even happen? And how did it get slipped into the signal? And then why didn't anybody catch it? Why didn't you proofread it? So basically, my thought is he's not going to be National Security Advisor anymore, but Trump really likes him, and Trump doesn't want to say, I'm casting you aside. Because Trump has a history of casting people aside, let's be honest. He'll get rid of somebody in a heartbeat. I mean, that's his whole shtick, right? You're fired. So in this case, has he been fired? At the very least, I think, Phil Williams talking, I think that they have at least put him off to the side where he can do no harm. That's my thought. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Sort of like that was too big of a oops to ignore. However, I really like you, and I think you could be really good, so I'll put you somewhere where you can still be useful. But I can't let what you did, go completely, ignored. But we could be wrong. It could just have been Trump, just simply saying this is an opening and
I got to fill it.
And Mike Waltz is the perfect guy to fill it. I don't know. It could be one of the two. But I don't think if he was fired for cause that in the sense of I can't even work with you anymore, that he would be at the UN ambassador. So it may have just been I have to do something, but I still like you kind of move.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks for giving up your role in Congress and supporting me during my campaign and whatever else. And I don't know. Like I said, Trump has got a history of being willing to just cast people aside as needed. There are times when I think that didn't do him any favors, truthfully. Jeff Sessions. I still think the world of Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, that was ugly.
That was ugly. That was way ugly. And that was that if I have any one or two grievances about Donald Trump, one of them is going to be Jeff Sessions, who I get why Trump felt the way he did, but the reaction to it left things in a really bad spot because Jeff Sessions is still to this day a very popular person, especially in his home state here of Alabama. And I had plenty of time sitting with Jeff Sessions and just talking through all these things, and it was tough. Not going to lie.
Another one for me was Mo Brooks.
And Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks.
I've always loved Mo Brooks. I think
absolutely
he's a true conservative, and it's unfortunate that it ended that way, and looks like Mo's out of politics forever now because of that. Maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, I agree with that.
Well, we'll see what happens. But the bottom line is this: big news for you today is the Trump administration is making a change already in its top members of the cabinet. The National Security Advisor is a no-fooling position. That's a very key role. Now, by the way, let me say this. Here's one thing that I'm not seeing anybody else say. So I was in the legislature in Alabama when Governor Robert Bentley chose to step down to avoid prosecution. I was there. When I say I was in the thick of it, let me just say I was more than in the thick of it. I was deeply enmeshed in all the stuff that went on with all of that what do we do now kind of mode. The guy who was tasked with coming up with the procedures for impeachment was me. I was the one who the means by which the state Senate would impeach a governor are now permanently on file after I helped author them. At the same time, I had a good relationship with Governor Bentley, and I spent time talking to him and just hearing his side of the story sometimes. All that to say, it is tough when you got to make a change. But I pointed out to a reporter back then, when Bentley stepped down, which was the right thing to do, he needed to step down and avoid the state having to go through the embarrassment of a very, what I would say would be a prurient trial. It would have been filled with salaciousness. He stepped down and the story began to die finally. It was sucking the oxygen out of the room. It was awful. But I pointed out to a reporter, what you just saw was Republicans willing to clean their own house. Because Democrats never do. They never do. Democrats never hold themselves accountable. They don't do squat to do accountability. Think back over the last 4 years. How many jackwagon things happened in the Biden administration and nobody lost their job? Nobody. You had the Secretary of Defense disappear for 5 straight days. They didn't even know he was gone, which was weirdness number one. But number two, he's AWOL and he went under general anesthesia without having anybody on tap to run the SecDef's office. Didn't lose his job. He's probably going to get a big gig at CNN. Who knows? And then you had, any number of other people like General Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, massive debacle in Afghanistan. Didn't lose his job. On and on and on I could go. The truth is, Democrats never hold their own people accountable. Republicans do. And so if you're seeing Mike Waltz have to leave for anything other than doing a stellar job, if he's being moved off to the side because of a problem, I will point out to you that would have never happened in the Biden administration. He would have come back to work the next day and dropped his cocaine bag in the mailbox and just had another day at the office.
He probably would have been promoted.
Just saying. All right, there you go. That's the news. Trump announces that Mike Waltz will be his ambassador to the United Nations. That's his confirmation pending still, but that's the news. Now the press doesn't know what to do because the press is all filled up with even Rolling Stone magazine. Trump celebrates his 100th day by firing people. Okay. Now, do we really have that? I don't know. But I do believe, in my opinion, Mike Waltz was probably asked to go take a different position. But we're not going to ruin your life, Mike. Just go do that. All right, listen, that's where we are right now. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back, and we'll jump on into Dipper number 1, Military-Minded. I got some good stuff. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Shag Nasty, the atheist, checking in. What's he saying? Shag Nasty says, maybe the worm in RFK's brain is whispering him ideas about how to spread parasites. Shag, at least try to be on topic, dude. Jeff from Indiana. Hey, Phil, Michael Waltz, I think he was chosen for the United Nations ambassador for two reasons: a demotion for what happened in the text message screw up, and he's already went through the Senate confirmation so he can take the job immediately. I don't think he can take the job immediately. I think he has to be confirmed to the position, not just confirmed for a position. So I think he has to go through the confirmation process again, which is going to be interesting because then they'll talk to him all about Signalgate.
So if he does, would he have to go through all those hearings, like the whole?
Yeah. If that's the case, I could be wrong, but if that's the case, I tell you what. Why don't you look it up while I'm doing this? Will Michael Waltz have to be confirmed to UN ambassador? Chris from Gadsden checking in says, maybe you were in the position of Paul in Macedonia when he shut down the slave girl who had a spirit of divination. Oh, he's talking about when Brother Jim was preaching. I don't know, bro. I know it was a crazy story. Don't be calling my sweet little woman a hussy.
He will have to be confirmed by the Senate.
He will for that role.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, listen, let's jump on into some military mindedness. So, you know the deal. This show is very military centric. My own background, the number of veterans in the audience, the number of actual green suiters who are still on active duty in the audience. I got several things here to cover, some good, some not so good. I will say this, on the world stage, and I pulled this from AmericanMilitaryNews.com. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Dateline yesterday. A new report shows that global military spending has increased by 9.4% since 2023. Meaning the world is, number one, recognizing the need, and number two, there's a lot of fracasness going on. It's the highest increase in military spending since the Cold War, and the war between Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas continues to add tensions that are probably fueling part of it. It says military spending increased in all world regions, with particularly rapid growth in Europe and the Middle East. The top 5 military spenders overall are who you'd expect: the United States, China, Russia, Germany, and India. That accounts for 60% of global totals, with combined spending of I think that's trillions. We're in the trillions here. 1,600 billion would be in the trillions, right? Yes. Says over 100 countries around the world raised their military spending just last year. Now, that military spending, by the way, some of it is more pronounced in other places. That was the averaging. Look at some of the countries. Military spending in Germany increased by 28%. That's a huge increase. Romania by 43%. The Netherlands increased by 35%. Sweden 34%, Czech Republic 32%, Poland, which is, on the border of Ukraine, increased by 31%. And there's several others like this. I'm looking at this, and the majority of these are NATO nations, or at the very least, Western nations with whom we have alliances. The only one that is, whether or not, I take it back, they're technically an ally, they're technically a NATO member, so I need to correct myself. I was about to say Turkey. Turkey's just got problems. Turkey ain't right.
Turkey doesn't act like a NATO member.
Turkey does not act like a NATO member. Turkey, listen, I can remember, deploying and having to fly through Incirlik, Turkey, and we had to stay inside because they didn't want us to be seen. I mean, come on. So, yeah, total military spending worldwide, way up, 9.4% overall. But in some nations, you're looking in the 30s and 40% increases. Is that a war footing? Not necessarily, but I think it's a very pragmatic view of the world. This is not a peaceful place, and military spending and peace through strength is back on the front burner right now. Now, having said that, here's a story I love, because you heard me how many times over the past few years rail about the Biden administration's inability to manage personnel in the military. We were at 40-year lows on recruiting and retention. It was an epic fail. In fact, the only way they improved their numbers twice, I believe it was 23 and 24, The only way they improved their numbers was by lowering their goals. Well, we made 80% of our goal. No, actually, you made 67% of your goal until you lowered you moved the goalposts, and then you made 80%. But right now we're seeing a massive increase, and that's huge. I've got a story. I tell you what, I'm gonna dig into this more when I get back from the break because I want to do it justice. But I've got a story here that 2 of them in a row actually that you ought to find pretty pleasing. If you're somebody who cares about recruiting, cares about retention, cares about the staffing of our U.S. military, then what I've got in my hands is absolutely worthy of me telling you about it. Got it straight off of Army.mil. By the way, all these resources are available on the website. And you can get them just by going to rightsidemedia.org. And right underneath the live stream, you'll see all the resources. So if you hear me rattling paper, that link is going to be right there so you can go get the same article if you want to. All right.
They're also in the newsletter as well.
And they're in the newsletter as well. Thank you so much. Okay, listen, we're about to take a break. When we come back from the break, I got more on military mindedness. And it's not a little bit, it's a lot. And I would ask you to think about it. How are we posturing ourselves on the world stage? Is peace through strength real? I submit to you that it is. And the only way to have it is to actually have strength. We'll be right back.
listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2. Don't forget, coming up bottom of this hour, we have some time with Butters and Lee. In the meantime, I'll be sticking with Dipper number 1 for a little bit, military-minded. You guys text it or call it, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number. That's right into the studio. JP answers the phone. By the way, I gotta step back to that thing about Michael Waltz no longer being the National Security Advisor. And, of course, the liberal media, it just depends on who you're talking to. Liberal media. Trump, ousts Michael Waltz, but then you turn around and go, okay, but he didn't also just like crush him and send him on his way, with broken bones. He's been tapped to be the UN ambassador. It is still a shakeup. Let's put it this way too. It's still a shakeup to the national security team. All right, and when you're only 100 days in, you don't make that kind of change if everything's going great. All right. If Michael Waltz is sitting in the position and things are grooving and Trump leans on him hard and needs his advice on everything, and that's all going spotless, then you don't move the guy out because that's a key role in the national security team. So I would really say that Michael Waltz has been asked to step aside, but he's not being cast aside. So there's that. And I'll say this too. I really like the fact that Michael Waltz took ownership of this thing. When that thing came out with Signal, he literally got on the air, or excuse me, on social media and put out a statement and said, "I accept complete responsibility for this. It came from my department." Well, good on you, sir. He may not have been the one who did it, but it happened on his watch. And so Michael Waltz out as NSA. The other piece of this story that I hadn't mentioned yet is that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, former senator, has been tapped by Trump to serve in dual role for the time being as the acting national security advisor and as Secretary of State. That clearly indicates that Trump thinks the world of Marco Rubio.
He's one of the members of the cabinet I've been most pleased with.
Oh yeah,
is Rubio. He's done amazing. He's
sharp as a tack. He always has been. All right, back to military minded. I got a good one. I got a real good one. So you remember all the stuff we had about the Biden administration just couldn't recruit. It was just so hard. We just don't know if we're going to be able to meet our mission, so we'll have to lower the standards. Okay, and then we'll also lower the numbers we need, and then we still didn't make mission. How about this? This is a great article. Army.mil. This is the official Army website. Army.mil. The Army has recently surpassed its fiscal year 25 re-enlistment goals by retaining 15,600 soldiers, 800 more than their target. So they exceeded their goals for re-enlistment. That's people who have, because we've been burning through soldiers, y'all. We've been burning through service members from all the branches. They're just like jumping out left and right. Well, what this means is you've got more than you had anticipated, more than you had hoped for, are re-enlisting to stay in because they like what they're seeing. That's a huge deal. Retention is massive. Recruiting is certainly good. You need the ground floor guys, right? You need the base entry private first class, but what you really need too are those sergeants. Those E6s, E7s, E8s who have been in for a while and got more to offer, because their leadership and their legacy knowledge is huge. So yeah, the U.S. Army just recently surpassed all of its fiscal year 25 re-enlistment goals. And folks, they're only halfway through the year. That's amazing. Says the early success in FY25 re-enlistments combined with the targeted retention strategy is helping the Army to effectively manage personnel. So yeah, that's the other thing. Retention has been met. The Army has also reached 85% already on its recruiting goals. So 6 months into the fiscal year, am I right in saying that? Yeah, roughly 6 months into the fiscal year, you got the Army is already at 85% of recruiting mission and over 100% of retention. Can I get some applause on that? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mama. Thank you very much. Thank you. That does not happen because the Biden administration, this is like the southern border, right? The Biden administration can't say, well, we put the things in place to help Trump get those numbers. Bullcrap. You destroyed the numbers. You were crushing the numbers. You were destroying the U.S. military the same way you destroyed the U.S. border. Trump put the border back in place, and Trump's putting the military back in place. Outstanding. Next story I got, and this one is for our veterans. Military.com. Phil, did you go to military.com? I did. Liberal rag. But I do. I go to these places so you don't have to. So the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee has now asked the Justice Department to investigate the former VA Secretary, Dennis McDonough, who served under Biden. Why? I'll summarize. I won't just read the article to you. The end result is the VA under Biden came back over the last 2 years saying that it had a multi-billion-dollar shortfall in its budget and it needed supplemental appropriations. And so they got some of them. And now what they're finding out is maybe they lied. What? Yes. So the suggestion is that senior VA officials submitted materially inaccurate funding requests, failed to disclose critical budget information and testimony before Congress, and letters that were written by the former VA secretary, and delays in informing Congress about their funding needs warrant immediate and independent review by your office, says Representative Mike Bost, Republican from Illinois. All right, so what he's saying is they came to us saying they didn't have enough money. They finished the year with money in the bank. So what that basically tells us is you lied or you did a horrible job. That's going to be interesting. All I know is this. They got some additional supplemental funds, and still they were so filled up with DEI and everything else they were doing that veterans were not getting the care they needed. That's changing, and I'm glad of it. Next one on the list, military-minded. So have you heard? Which one do I want first? I'll take this one. Have you ever heard, JP, of the Roosevelt Reservation?
Nope, I have not.
Well, I don't know what kind of school you went to, because I certainly never heard of it either. The Roosevelt Reservation, for reasons I don't fully understand, was put in place by President Teddy Roosevelt. It's a 60-foot wide, literally 60 feet. It's like half as wide as a football field. 60-foot wide strip of land that stretches from California, Arizona, and New Mexico. It's almost like the United States government has an easement that runs the length of the border of Mexico. Very novel approach here. We talked about it once on the show already. The Trump administration decided in early April they were going to designate that as military reservation. So it's no longer just like a dedicated strip of federal land. Now it's a military installation, meaning the U.S. military can patrol it. The U.S. military can enforce its passage across it. And by and large, it just becomes like going to Redstone Arsenal. You gotta, if you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. So
nice. It's actually putting stuff we have to use. Amazing.
So the U.S. military just made 28 arrests of illegals trying to cross through the Roosevelt Reservation just in New Mexico in the last week.
Nice.
So we're patrolling it like we patrol any other military installation. And so what it does also too is entering the country illegally is commonly a misdemeanor charge with potential for 6 months in jail and $5,000 in fines. But the addition of the new misdemeanor charge of trespassing in the military zone adds up to a year in jail plus another $100,000 fine. It is somewhat of a deterrent, shall we say.
Just a little bit.
You can also put a fence up there and Congress can't say boo about it. Just saying.
Just saying.
Last story on military-minded. Why is it the Osprey always seems to be in trouble? The V-22 Osprey it's the tilt rotor aircraft that looks like an airplane until all of a sudden both the engines on one on each wing tilt up and it flies like a helicopter. It can lift. It can do straight vertical lift. It's a troop carrier. It's fast. It gets up into altitude, spins those rotors forward, flies like an airplane, tilts them up, lands on a dime. Except there have been multiple occasions in which there were losses of life due to inefficiencies or mechanical failures on V-22 Ospreys. I won't say it's a complete waste. It's actually a very cool aircraft. It's more than concept proven. But once again, Ospreys are grounded. So I got a story here from defense1.com, dateline yesterday. The U.S. military's fleet of V-22 Ospreys won't be able to fly without restrictions until the year 2026. I mean, well, let's hope we don't need them in combat in the meantime. Let's hope those units that were rebranded as V-22 Osprey units as opposed to Blackhawks, let's hope that they've got something going on besides just hanging out in the motor pool and, playing cards. But it turns out they had a gearbox issue where the steel was not strong enough. Why is that, by the way? It's supposed to be made to specs that give it the ability to withstand the most stressful conditions that can be ever applied to an aircraft. Combat. You're being shot at. You're flying at high speeds. You're taking immediate evasive action. You're landing in rough terrain. All these things have to be accounted for. Oh, by the way, at the same time, you're flying in tight formation with lots of other aircraft sometimes. Well, the military put limitations on Osprey flights after a crash killed 8 airmen in 2023. And the investigation found that the aircraft's prop rotor gearbox, so we're looking at a 3-year, basically just 3 years of the Osprey not being fully functional. And I don't know what the end state of that's going to be, but it needs to get worked out. I have run long. Would you ask my caller if he'd mind holding on during the break? I've got to take the break right now or we're going to be really off cycle. So we'll come back and get that call right after this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Going right to the phones because he held on during the break, and I appreciate it. Sparky from Harvest. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, awesome. Three things. Number one, listening to your show last few weeks when JP filled in for you and ran the show. Knocked it out of the park. Fantastic.
Outstanding.
Thank you,
very
Sparky.
entertaining, coherent, wonderful. Two, my granddaughter, who's within a couple weeks of graduating electronic technician training up at Great Lakes Naval Base, she says they're running day and night shift. They literally have all the AIT schools with a full day shift, and then they turn around and have instructors teaching the curriculum at night. I don't know if that's a normal thing, but she says things are getting busy.
Wow, that's awesome.
And third thing, there was I had a close military test pilot friend this last year went down to the Panhandle with some people on an information exchange, and they got to fly on the B-22 Osprey.
Yeah.
He said it beat them to death. I mean, you ever rode in a helicopter with a rotor blade was out of track and balance?
Yeah.
And the pilots were like, well, no, that's how this is. This is as good as it gets. And I'm thinking, how can you life the components of something that shakes that hard? It kind of blew my mind.
I don't know, but when you read the article I just had in my hands a moment ago, I mean, they literally talk about how the metal is having to be reconstituted because they did not use the version of steel fabrication that was the strongest. And I'm thinking, why?
Yeah, I don't know. I've flown in and around those things, and I've done test flying when I was still flying down by Eglin Hurlburt. They had them go by, and it just kind of blew my mind. What an awkward machine that is.
They are, and let me ask you this though. My recollection is they at top speed when they're flying with rotors forward, they are faster than a Black Hawk. Am I right?
Oh yeah, incredibly. Yeah. I don't know if they do 300 miles an hour, but they go way up in the 200s, and that's when everything's working right, those Marines deserve the best, and God bless them. It'll get them from here to there awful quick when everything's working. But boy, I hope they fix the problems with that machine. The Army's coming on board with our next gen. I forgot what it's called exactly, but our next gen tilt rotor is designed to replace the Black Hawk by 2031 as a Bell product, and it's smaller and sleeker than the Osprey. I've watched some test flights on the videos of that one. That seems like a pretty smooth machine.
Well, we'll wait and see. I mean, I expect there to be innovations. You know, the future of warfare will not look like the original, and I get it. But it just seems like the Osprey has been plagued from day one with, and it's not been all operator error or combat. It's been like mechanical failures, and that's just like been throughout its entire life.
Yeah, in the life cycle of military acquisitions, there's a sliding scale. Down on the bottom end is the Sergeant York anti-aircraft gun, and on the other end of just sleek success, I guess, the Black Hawk helicopter. But I think the Osprey is sort of it's a lot closer to the Sergeant York than it is the Black Hawk.
Yeah. I think the one that probably outlasts them all is the Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun. Been around for over 100 years.
Absolutely. Hey, great show, Phil.
Thanks, brother. See you. Sparky from Harvest. Thanks for your service, man, in case you're still listening. All right, so listen, we're going to come back here in a minute, and we got some Butters and Lee that we'll be jumping into, and you can imagine some of the topics, but we're going to probably get some opinions from the Butters and the Lee about whether or not they think that I'm giving away the question early. Was Michael Waltz fired, or was he just put off to the side, or was it because they just couldn't have him anymore because, he wasn't trusted, or what? Or for that matter, is it a lateral move? I don't know. Got a question from Flip from Priceville real quick on the text lines. He says, can Rubio hold the two positions for an extended period of time, or is there time to find someone else? Yeah, he can hold it for as long as he needs to because he's in an interim capacity. He's not designated as the full time. So he will be able to be read in on the things that the NSA, but he probably already was, and he'll be able to hold that position as long as necessary.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of that stuff overlaps anyways. Yeah, I feel like Rubio, a lot of what he does overlaps with, Waltz and Hexeth, what they were doing anyways. So
I would agree.
I don't think it would be too much of a load for him to carry, but I wouldn't want him to do that for his whole 4 years.
Especially when you consider that the hot button issues right now for Secretary of State are going to be things like Ukraine negotiations and peace in Israel, what's going on with Iran and the Houthis. All of that is still part of Secretary of State's purview also, so he's going to be in the mix. All right, coming right back. You guys stay tuned. We'll have some Butters and Lee. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down to some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. It goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there, for what we now love recalling Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, it's that time of the week. You know the deal. We have regular events throughout the week. One of them scattered in onto a Thursday. Thankful Thursdays, we have two people who come in who are very much a part of the fabric and the family of the show. So without further ado, let me make some introductions. She's rocking, she's rolling, she's opinion extolling, she's a dynamic diva of political punditry. Lee from Huntsville, are you there?
I'm here. I love that introduction.
And then with words of wisdom and incisive insight, slicing like a hot knife through butter, that'd be Butters. Are you there?
I'm a little not sure what to say with those intros. That's awesome.
I pronounce a quorum. Give me some whoop whoops for Butters and Lee. A little too quick on the
My bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You know the deal. I ask a question first round. You ask a question second round. So here's my question. It's hot news. It's all out there right now, and people don't know what to think of it. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, former Green Beret, former member of Congress from Florida, Republican. He's been the National Security Advisor for Trump for 100 days. Reports are that he has now been let go. Some were saying it was a firing, but then it was announced just in the last hour that he's been nominated to serve as the ambassador to the United Nations. So was it a firing? Was it a lateral move? What are your thoughts? Lee, you first.
Okay, my thoughts on this one are that he was definitely fired, but in the sense of they tried to cushion the blow with another job, which is, the UN. So, ambassador to UN. So, but the thing is that he, and I heard you say earlier, you felt like, he owns the responsibility. I say yes and no. He said, this came from my department, but then again, they're going to find out anyway where it came from. But I think that he probably should have resigned at that point. That may have been truly accepting responsibility, but it could have also been a call from the Trump admin not wanting to give the leftist press, a win, a pound of flesh, if you will, taking out one of their appointed people so soon. So this may all have been kind of planned to exit that way. But yes, and I'm thinking it's also the guy below him that got fired that may have been the true little, worm.
Yes. So you think, basically you're saying you believe he was let go for cause, and yet they cushioned the fall.
Yes.
Okay. Butters, what say you?
So after watching some of the interviews of some of the other staffers, like from the Pentagon, that were removed or let go, and then some of the interview that Glenn Beck did with the president, I think it peels back a little bit to go, there's dysfunctionality. It's not as perhaps as well oiled as one at least what they gave off when they came in. I think the president basically said, like, there was just so much to do, and we were just doing it. And I think it came across as a well-oiled machine. I think now, it's just they're human beings involved in an organization, and they've got some disruptions, and they're working through it. And good on them for at least making a change and not just sticking their head in the sand.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. You and I were talking earlier. That this, at the very least, what we appear to have is an administration that will actually apply accountability to its own people. I mean, you didn't see anybody lose a job or be asked to resign in the Biden administration, like ever. It would not surprise me to find out that he tendered his resignation and Trump said, well, I'm going to accept it, but I'm going to send you over here. I mean, I don't know. That may have happened. Who knows? Then again, he may have said, no, please, Mr. President, no. And then he got another job. So I
definitely still think that most of these guys, they're doing things for the right reasons, even if they may be doing them wrong, or that they still don't have a whole bunch of people that are just there to move up the ladder, is what I mean. They're still trying to do the right thing for the country.
But the stakes are so high. I mean, there's going to be room for error. You got to have some measure of room for error. Perfection is never going to be a thing, but the stakes are still really, really high. Lee, any final thoughts on that?
I agree with all of that. I just think notice who didn't have a soft landing, and that's who I'm looking at, which is the underling.
Yeah.
And I think he was probably the true problem in all this, but there just had to be some heads on the chopping block.
Yeah, we'll see. Unless of course that guy's going with him. Who knows? But all right, question number dos. So Trump is speaking. He's here in Alabama today. He's speaking at the University of Alabama's commencement for graduation this evening. Coach Nick Saban is also addressing the crowd, so they'll be on stage together. Tommy Tuberville, we have it on good authority, is flying down with the president. So here's my question. Are we about to hear a Trump endorsement of Tuberville for governor? Or are we going to hear about a Saban endorsement of Tuberville for governor? Or are we going to hear about Saban running for U.S. Senate? There's my questions. Butters, you first.
Well, first, War Eagle. Second,
War Eagle, I celebrate.
Yeah, JP's the in-depth sports guy, so I don't know, all the political leanings of Saban. I'm honest, I'm a little surprised that he's getting tied up into this rigmarole. So it definitely leaves a little room for me to go, I wonder what's going on. As far as endorsing for governor, I mean, he hadn't even officially announced yet. So.
He hasn't, but
I could totally see Trump going, yeah, he'd make a great governor, don't you guys think? And getting the crowd hyped up. So.
I could see that. I could see that. But what do you think? Is Nick Saban going to endorse Tommy Tuberville for governor?
Not at today's ceremony.
Lee, what do you think?
I think that Trump could definitely endorse him, or at least suggest that he would be a good governor. And yeah, for sure, I could see that. Saban, no, not as much. He's Democrat leaning, so I doubt it. I don't even know if he'd endorse him. Period. And it has nothing to do with rivalry. It's just they don't exactly fall within the same party. But Saban's very important to the school, and believes in doing things for Alabama. So I definitely understand why he's there. But I do think Trump will, if Tuberville shows, that he would do that. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think though about Saban ever running for an empty Senate seat if Tuberville vacates? Huh?
Why would he? No, he doesn't want that. No. I mean, he's done everything he's wanted to do, and now he's got these lucrative contracts, and he's got his gigantic house, which is primary residence, by the way. So I think that would be a problem in Florida. So no, I don't see it.
I bet he's got a heck of a trophy room. What Butters? What you got?
So can we unpack that? Some that was said just a little.
All right, what?
Okay, so Saban, he's a Democrat, wouldn't endorse. Are we at a point where it's? I mean, we talk a lot about what does the R really mean? These days in Alabama, and it's a little. Is it something that is Saban a guy that's like, no, he'd be a good leader, regardless of what party he runs for? I believe in what he does and his decision making.
You still have to run on party, though. You're not going to run as an independent. Even a Nick Saban can't run as an independent.
Oh, no. I mean, in terms of the endorsement for Tuberville. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. Saban endorsing Tuberville because he thinks he's a good leader.
He's inherently not political. He never has been. I just don't see it.
He's hey, you're right. And my recollection, I could be wrong. JP can chime in if he wants to, but my recollection is he has never branded himself per se, and he's never gotten out there and vocalized a whole lot about politics, but he has been on the side of some issues that are more left leaning,
Well, the only
like COVID stuff.
The only reason people say that he's a Democrat is because, his home state, West Virginia, he's endorsed Joe Manchin, which is now.
That's right, but he and Joe Manchin were
He's very
college
good friends
buddies.
with Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
And Joe Manchin's now an independent. So if I were to guess on Saban's political leanings, it would be old school Democrat. But also, I agree with Lee. He's not going to touch politics with a 10-foot pole.
Unless it's NIL.
I bet he will. I'll be all over that. In fact, there was actually an article today saying that Tuberville was hoping to get a few minutes to talk with Trump and Saban together about NIL and some reforms. I personally think that I don't think that that Nick Saban is a Democrat. I think he's a guy who just eschews politics and is loyal to his friends. And so if it came out later that it was good for business, so to speak, for him to say, Tommy Tuberville's my friend. We've known each other for years. I think he'll make a great governor. I think he would do that if the relationship, as long as he has no prohibitions in his contract with ESPN. But I think that he would do it if that was his relationship. I don't think he'll do it because he's a Democrat or he's a Republican. I think that he's beyond that.
I gotta believe if he is a Democrat, he's a Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. Democrat.
Yeah.
Just would do the right thing.
You mean a moderate Republican?
Exactly. Right. That's what we're saying. The kind where you really can't tell what they are until they announce that they've been approved by a party to run for office.
But also, can I just say one more thing?
Sure, why not?
I don't think he's going to hijack the commencement speech to get any attention to him.
I don't think he is.
It will be a classy, congrats to the grads.
Yeah.
Thanks, President, for coming, and that's it. I think that's all it will be.
Yeah. The question will be, if Trump stands up there and says, Where's Tommy? Where's Tommy? Tommy would make a great governor. Nick, don't you think so? I think Tommy. And if Nick smiles and nods his head, yes, that alone is an endorsement.
Yeah, it can be taken that way. I agree.
All right, that's round one. That's some serious speculations right there. Round one, Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We come back round two. Flip the script. They ask me questions. We'll see how I do. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so here we are. Round 2 of Butters and Lee. This is where we flip the script and they ask me a question, any question, and I just hope I have an answer. So I'm going ladies first. Lee, what have you got?
So kind of playing off the last question we were discussing, what do you think is going to be the down ballot implication of move to governor if, in fact, I think it's a certainty at this point. But, you've got Ainsworth, who's been looking at that for a long time and now probably feels like he wants to kick something. And, how does that look for his seats he's leaving and the other races? Are we going to get a lot of hardcore conservatives? What does it look like to you?
Okay, so you're talking about overall, like what happens if we see the Tuberville governor's race?
For the
what
domino.
Happens? Okay, I think that Ainsworth right now is very seriously considering a run for the U.S. Senate, but he's got his hands full because I think Steve Marshall is also, and I would not be a bit surprised to see if somebody who has is well heeled with a lot of money and good standing in the business community also steps in. I think you're going to see a real race for lieutenant governor, which right now is Wes Allen, Secretary of State. I hear that Rick Pate, who is the current ag commissioner, is considering moving off of his governor's potential to running for lieutenant governor. I've already got 2 or 3 other names that I'm not at liberty to talk about yet that I think would be strong candidates. So there's that. And then believe it or not, except for treasurer, every statewide office in Alabama, with the exception of Katie Britt's seat, is up, like with no incumbent. There's going to be open seats across the board. So I think you're about to watch a primary season that is unlike any we've had in a generation here in Alabama. And it's because they're all open seats and they're all statewide. Then on top of that, you got every legislative race all at one time. So you're going to have a few members of the legislature going to feel their bones and think they can move up to something else. We'll wait and see. I think also, by the way, one of the strong potential candidates for running for the U.S. Senate seat is Congressman Dale Strong. That's being talked about quite a bit right now. He hasn't been in Congress very long, but he's certainly been around for a while. The question is, does he have the statewide name ID to get out there and get it done? I don't know. So anyway, there's my painting of the dominoes. The end result is, Lee, it's going to be a cattle call. It's going to be just a complete free-for-all.
Can't wait.
It's going to be something. If you're a political hack like us, you've got plenty to watch, and it's going to be a target-rich environment for a talk radio show. I can tell you that.
I would like to make a quick plug for local community. I know we've got some mayors and city council member elections that are going to be coming up in the next 12 to so months.
Yeah, and those run off cycle.
Those
will be during an August time frame, generally speaking. But yeah, that's certainly in fact that's where you draw your future governors from, as mayors and stuff like that. So it's absolutely got to be looked at. All right, Butterman, before I run out of time, what do you got for me question wise?
So we talked about NIL.
Yeah.
And so this high school NIL mumbo jumbo, I haven't looked into it too deep because I'm just not sure I've got the stomach for it. What are they talking about? What is going on with this? What is this craziness?
Well, first of all, I will say that my personal opinion is that college sports is being absolutely ruined by NIL and the portal. Those two things. Kids no longer ride for the brand. They no longer grow up with the dream of playing for that team. I mean, there are some that will and some that still do, and there are programs they want to be a part, legacy, like University of Alabama or Auburn. You may be a legacy kid who grew up and you watched it, or you had a family member who was in it, and that's the only place you want to go. But what's happening right now is there is a complete destruction to the idea of joining something bigger than yourself, because NIL and portal makes it all about yourself. And that's ruining team sports in the NCAA. The high school piece is equally nauseating, if not more so. Number one, we don't allow kids that age to even drink, join the military, or get a Costco card. They can't enter into contracts on their own. They can't make medical decisions, most of them. And they're not allowed to sign contracts to buy a car on their own. And yet we're going to say that we can do NIL for high school, and yet the High School Athletic Association doesn't even let a private school recruit kids just to play, much less to pay. So I think if they go down high school route with NIL money, you're going to watch basically what I call, you're going to watch the farm league. Every high school and college is going to become the farm league of the other.
Well, and maybe because I didn't grow up in Alabama, I'm a little unsure what schools have so much money coming in that they're spare. Because most of, like, I've dealt a lot with the college angler or the high school anglers. I've been in that space, and those guys, they're just trying to get enough money to go play be a part of the sport.
Yeah,
like,
here's the thing. You got some schools that absolutely do. Look at Hoover. Used to have their own TV show called Hoover U because it was so huge. 7A schools especially are going to be huge. Some private schools are still absolutely huge, especially the Catholic schools like down in Mobile, and some of the ones like John Carroll in Birmingham. You got massive money in the booster clubs. But the other piece of this is you watch, because if NIL becomes a thing, then the legislature will feel like they have to even the playing field, so to speak, and they're going to start giving out NIL monies, and they'll be raising local taxes to fund NIL in high schools, and it's just going to be nauseating, and it can't happen. Can't not happen. There.
Well, if there are any big sponsors with big dollars listening, I've got a high school athlete. And I've got a good attorney. So
wow.
Let's talk.
Well, and that attorney, by the way, is your wife. You're not talking about me, are you?
Oh, either one will do.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, great round. Good stuff. Butters and Lee, love you both. Thank you much. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, coming back for hour number 3. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3 on a thankful Thursday. That's what we call it. It's a thankful Thursday. Hey, I got to touch base again on this story about Mike Waltz. That's the dipper inside the dippers right now, right? So the story about National Security Advisor Mike Waltz no longer being National Security Advisor. Something occurred to me a while ago, and then I just saw Jennifer Griffin, Fox News Channel's senior Pentagon correspondent. She said something that I was considering too. Have you noticed, by the way, that the word got out, Mike Waltz, he's been fired, he's ousted, and the press immediately went rabid, which, it's a story, so I give him props for that. It's a story. But the press went rabid with speculation that the Trump administration was falling apart. Rolling Stone was gleeful over it. No telling what some of the other, the Axioses and the Huffington Post, others had to say. But then it came out like 3 hours later that he's also being tapped to be the ambassador to the UN. Huh. Okay. Now, Jennifer Griffin just says this. After more than 3 hours of allowing news of his national security advisor's ouster to hang unanswered, President Trump with a post praising Waltz and nominating him to the top ambassador role at the UN. Here's Trump's post. He says, quote, this is from his Truth Social account. He says, I am pleased to announce that I'll be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. From his time in uniform on the battlefield, in Congress, and as my national security advisor, Mike Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know he'll do the same in his new role. In the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Together, we will continue to fight tirelessly to make America and the world safe again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, I go back to if he was doing a stellar job and was seen as being indispensable in his current role at National Security Advisor, they wouldn't be moving him over. But I also believe that Trump decided, something screwed up and it was on your watch and I got to deal with it, but I like you and so I'm not going to just trash you. That's what I think is happening here.
But also, I think part of the strategy was to let everybody freak out over it for 3 hours.
I agree.
Make them tie themselves in a knot so then when he releases that, they just look stupid and lose all credibility.
And then all of a sudden they go, oh.
Yep.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, I think he's toying with them a little bit.
You have a sound effect like that, don't you? So Trump let them stew and...
Oh, sorry. Was that my cue with it?
Yes. Okay.
I was waiting for a more emphatic cue.
Just suck the life out of my joke. Okay. No, all right. Anyway, that's where we are right now. Mike Waltz has been, but I saw too, Democrats are just licking their chops right now. They can't wait because they get another bite at the apple. Now they get to do a confirmation hearing with Michael Waltz and excoriate him as the harbinger of doom for the United States, as the guy who couldn't run the job, as the one who's already been fired in the first 100 days. Okay, he's been fired, but he's been being confirmed to another job. Okay, we'll see. By the way, there's also a video going on right now, and I'm watching. It's still going, JP. It's still going. So Kamala apparently gave a speech in San Francisco yesterday. And if she's not stoned, if she didn't have a handful of gummies before she walked out there, I don't know. But, she is absolutely a cackling hyena. She is completely, listen, we so dodged a bullet.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Oh, my gosh, we dodged a bullet.
You tell me you don't want to hear the cackle for 4 years?
I don't, and I also don't want to, no. And I don't want the constant questions about what did she say? I got so sick of that. As vice president, when she would speak, you'd walk away going, I don't know what she just said. And I don't think she does either.
Well, I saw Caroline Levitt today said, I speak for everybody in this administration. We encourage Kamala Harris to keep doing speaking engagements to prove that we made the right choice.
All right, let's jump on topic number 2. Dipper number 2, Ukraine, with an exclamation point. Ukraine. Been a lot of things happen in the last 24 hours. I think the story on Michael Waltz is sort of taking center stage right now. But we've got, if you haven't seen it, we've got the we've got a picture that to me has incredible imagery. At Pope Francis's funeral just last week, President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky took a moment. They grabbed a couple of chairs and literally dragged them over into the center of a room, and they sat down face to face, actually leaned in so they could have a quiet conversation. But they weren't in the back room. They weren't. It wasn't like they had to have all their people. In fact, even Emmanuel Macron from France walked over, wanted to be a part of the conversation, had a third chair brought over, and Trump's like put his hand on his chest, and said, "No, that's okay. We got this."
Not enough people were talking about that part of the clip, by the way.
That's a hilarious part of the clip.
Like the fact there were 3 chairs.
You're the one that showed me that.
Yeah, and I was like, is nobody else seeing this? That there were 3 chairs and Macron, got told to go pound sand.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Take a lap, Macron.
Yeah.
But so story on that. Got a piece here from Fox News. Dateline yesterday. Headline: President Trump reveals what he told Zelensky during a viral meeting at the Pentagon. A couple things. One is Trump said, "I was telling him it's a very good thing if we can produce a deal that you sign it because Russia's much bigger and much stronger." So he's basically looking at it and going, "You can't win this." And I think there's some belief that that's still true. Obviously, Ukraine has been putting the wood to Russia, but it's a war of attrition at this point. It's an absolute war of attrition. And Russia has more they can attrit, if you know what I mean. But then Trump also said, he told me he needs more weapons, but he's been saying that for 3 years. He said, we're going to see what happens. I want to see what happens with respect to Russia because, Russia, I've been surprised and disappointed, very disappointed. They did the bombing of those places after discussions. So basically they had a hashing it out conversation. Zelensky said this about it. He said, we discussed a lot one-on-one. Hoping for results on everything that we recovered, protecting the lives of our people, full unconditional ceasefire, reliable and lasting peace that will prevent another war from breaking out. It was a very symbolic meeting, has the potential to become historic if we can achieve joint results. What that tells me is both presidents walked away believing they had a substantive conversation. And it was not a trading of platitudes or comfortable remarks. They walked away. Trump's flat out said, I told him I don't know if you can win in the long run. And he says he wants more weapons. I don't know if we can give you more weapons. We'll see. So he left that with a maybe. But then you got this. Our special envoy is one of my favorite military pundits. I would put General Jack Keane at the top of the list for military punditry. But right after him is Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. Just a great guy. He was actually Mike Pence's National Security Advisor, if I'm not mistaken. But U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg, he's been assigned by Trump to be the special envoy to the Ukraine delegation or to the Ukraine peace efforts. U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg said on April 30th he does not expect Washington to abandon the peace efforts despite previous threats from the White House. He says the Ukrainians have always said they're willing to give up the land, just not de jure, forever, but de facto because the Russians actually occupy it. That's what they're willing to do. They told me that last week. So what he's saying is the Ukrainians realize they probably won't go back to where they were before the war. They want as much as they can keep. Obviously, it's their land. It was their country. Before the war, they want as much back as possible. They'll probably never get Crimea. If you remember the entire Crimean Peninsula, which is the portion that extends down into the Black Sea and gives warm water ports to whomever controls it, that was lost back during the Obama-Biden administration. And nobody said boo about it. Obama just kind of blinked and went, that just happened on my watch. Okay, next story. And Russia just annexed the entire Crimean Peninsula. And then they came in during the Biden administration, of course, and invaded Ukraine proper. The U.S. has threatened to walk away, y'all. They have. President Trump has threatened to walk away from the whole thing and say, I'm washing my hands of you if they don't begin to broker a true ceasefire. What he's trying to do is force them to the table. At the same time, something big just happened. Where is that story? Why am I not seeing the story that I think is the most important? Here it is. It's on the third or fourth down. Here it is in my stack. Because y'all, I bring stacks. In my calloused former paratrooper hands, I hold a story from Fox News, Dateline May 1st. Ukraine signs the deal to give U.S. access to rare minerals with Trump administration committed to a peace process, says Secretary Bessent. This is not a rumor. This is not a sources say. This is a confirmed thing. They signed the agreement. I've seen pictures of the signature being put on ink. Ukrainian Economy Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Yulia Shrivenko flew to Washington, D.C. Wednesday and finalized the deal. On behalf of the government of Ukraine, she said, I signed the agreement on the establishment of a United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. Together with the United States, we're creating the fund that will attract global investment to our country. What does this do? This is why it's huge. One of the don't for a second think that Russia invaded Ukraine because they were scared of NATO. NATO was already there. Now, granted, it was provocative and it could factor in, but it was not the only factor. Because at no time did Russia believe that Ukraine was going to invade Russia. And at no time did they believe that somehow NATO was going to step up and just invade now that we're one country closer. You've already got Poland, you've got the Baltic states, you've got, Georgia asking to be admitted, and you've got, of course, most of Western Europe. NATO is all around them. They don't like it. I get that. I don't think we'd like it either if Russia had a proxy state like in Cuba. Oh, that's right. We've been through that. So yes, I get it. That's not the only factor. Russia's economy is sucking wind right now, sucking wind. Russia's economy needs something to stimulate it. Russia used the false flag that there were a lot of people of Russian descent over there in Ukraine that felt disenfranchised, and so we had to step in and help them because Russia's always for human rights, right? Russia's always about helping people. Sure, that's what they do. Russia only does things when it benefits people and the good of mankind. Shut up. Russia is a territorial grabber. Russia is an absolute pariah on the world stage. They have been for decades. What Russia saw next door in Ukraine was several things. They saw the breadbasket of Europe, all right? So agricultural industry in Ukraine is huge. Russia needs more of that. They saw energy production. Most of Europe's nuclear energy stems from Ukraine. Did you know that? It does. And they also saw, oh, by the way, massive deposits of rare earth minerals. Rare earth minerals, things like lithium and all it takes to make batteries and microchips and the things it takes to power the 21st century. Massive deposits in Ukraine that Russia wanted. Guess who's got a contract for it now? The United States of America. When we come back from this break, I'll tell you more about that. We just signed a deal with them that I think is going to carry us forward for the next 50 years or more. And I'll tell you what it means to Ukraine. It's not just good for us. And I'll tell you what it means to Russia. This is a big deal, y'all. It's flying under the radar right now, but it's a big, hairy deal. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Hey, real quick, I got to tell you, I'll keep stepping back to the story as it develops, but Mike Waltz himself just tweeted out. He said, "I am deeply honored to continue my service to President Trump and our great nation." So that's interesting. That is absolutely his gray checkmark official capacity X feed right there, sending out the message that he was actually retweeting the message from Donald Trump. I tell you what, on that same topic, I think I got a caller from out of state. Let me grab it real quick. Tyler from New Jersey. Hey, Tyler, how you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. What part of New Jersey are you from?
Morris County.
Outstanding. Well, I appreciate it. I was actually born up that way at what used to be called Fort Monmouth.
Sure. I know where it is.
Well,
in Eatontown.
What can I do for you?
Yeah, so we all know that Trump said he would end the Ukraine war on day one and it would be easy. That has aged well. His main guy is Steve Witkoff handling that task. Do you know what kind of expertise or background Steve Witkoff has?
I think he has the kind that President Trump trusted. And I'm very aware that Steve Witkoff had some trouble and served his time, but I'm also aware that he was a pretty successful businessman.
Right. But does he have a background in Russia or Ukraine or foreign relations or international diplomacy? You know, the things that would maybe come in handy.
I don't know. I mean, I look at it and think, did Barack Obama have any qualifications to be president other than the fact that he was a senator for 2 years after being a community activist? I don't know. What do you think?
Why are you so pathetically changing the topic to our president from 12 years ago?
So you're calling in right now because you want to take it to task, but you don't want to hear somebody put it back to you. Is that right?
Yeah, so does Trump deliberately hire totally incompetent and unqualified people?
I don't know. Once you ask,
which they always.
I don't know. Once you ask Joe Biden, who didn't know what day it was when he was looking for his ice cream and his pudding time, you got Samuel Brenton, who was a fetish kink activist who was stealing luggage from the airport, who had a security clearance working in the nuclear industry. What does that do for the Trump or the Biden administration? I mean, I think the bottom line is you want to call in here and you want to try and make fun and poke, but you've got the most qualified, competent bunch of type A people running the country right now, and you don't know what to do about it.
Right. Why do you keep bringing up Biden? Biden sucked. Tell me something I don't know.
Well, he was your candidate, I take
Biden
it.
All the time.
So were you a Biden voter?
No.
Were you a Kamala Harris voter?
Yes.
Well, okay. So what are you trying to say?
But not because Harris was a horrible, horrible candidate, but she would have been better than this unmitigated disaster.
She was a cackling hyena who did not know her backside from both hands. I mean,
She didn't. You're right, but she didn't try to overturn an election, did she?
Actually, you think? Is that really what you're going to stick with? I mean, you want to go back to 2020 and find out whether she did or did not? I think the end result is, Tyler, hey, by the way, I appreciate the fact that you listen to the show. That is probably one of the ways you can cure some of what you're going through right now. But the reality is you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there by calling in and pretending that you can say insults and it's just going to stick, because you're going to get it handed right back to you, man. We got 4 years of evidence.
I love hitting you clowns over the head. It's fun.
I know you think you just did, and wow. Anyway, try again some other time, Tyler, and maybe go ahead and study up and have your insults a little more polished before you call in next time. All right, listen, the break is upon us. We're about to hit it right now. Tyler from New Jersey. That was so cheesy. All right, you guys, we're going to come right back, and I'll get back on topic and tell you about what I was about to tell you about that rare earth minerals deal in Ukraine. It's a game changer, and I'll tell you how it's laid out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
Turn it up.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all don't talk about this show. Whew. I mean, it goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we now get to call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Got a bunch of text messages. A lot of them responding to Tyler's call. And I got a call on the line. Let me grab that real quick. He held on during the break, and I appreciate it. Mark from Madison. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Doing good, sir. Appreciate the tact that you use to handle the so-called New Jersey guy. I actually feel sorry for him because I feel like his parents just didn't love him, because if they did, they would have given him plenty of butt whippings back in the day to keep him from being so tough to just call people clowns and throw out insults. And, I'm kind of one of those individuals to where I miss the days where somebody pops off enough that it's kind of like, hey, 5:30 behind the gym, let's go and see how tough you are. But I know he's not that way, or maybe he is. He's been kicked out of New Jersey and can't handle that. But, I think that whether you like Trump or not, I think the Republicans need to keep being tougher. There was a video today where I think it may have been like Newsmax or one of them, where they were trying to interview, Omar.
Oh, yeah.
And ask her questions, and she drops an F off. And it's kind of like, okay, they're coming at those things. So we know we're winning because it's pushing them to a level where they can't even have just common decency and tact. So that their way is just to go completely loony. But I find it, apparently he doesn't listen to your show enough, because I don't think that clown would not be something that I would ever call you. Ever. So he's a complete idiot, and it just shows how much they're winning, because him and Kareem and some of these guys that call in, it's like, guys, I don't even see. Y'all have gone almost to like mental illness with some of these things that you're saying now.
Well, I'll be honest with you, too. The funny thing is Kareem and I can actually talk. I mean, like, Kareem will call in and rant, but we'll go back and forth. But the other day he called in, and we actually agreed completely on what he called in about. So
I think Kareem is an actual closet Republican. I really do. I just think that he trying to think the right word. A lot of times on the internet they would call them flamers, but that could get you confused with something else these days. But a troll, or I think he just likes to elicit, and throw things out just to get a reaction. But deep down, you listen to some of his stuff, probably a good dad and a good community guy, and realizes that Trump's not all that bad. He's like I'm trying to think, there's a guy that's always on Fox that has the Trump hat.
Yeah.
I think maybe Kareem actually sits around in a Trump hat.
Mark, call in anytime, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the Ukraine deal. I swear, I am. Listen, it's my show. Do you mind if I talk on my show about my things?
Nah, go ahead. I mean, in Tyler's fairness, he did criticize on the Ukraine topic, so, it was kind of on topic until we got into insults.
Sure he did. Shag Nasty the Atheist coming to Tyler's rescue. He said, I'd love to hear anyone on your show make a single good faith argument. Here come the callers mildly advocating for violence, he says. Stop it, Shag. Come on. Come back to the light, Shag. All right, so the Ukraine deal. Can I please? All right, so here's the deal. This is not just the United States gets to mine rare earth minerals and take them home. It's not. The Ukrainians do not have the capacity to mine what's there. The world needs it. And so what we're looking at right now is a deal that says, remember I said Russia wanted this, right? Most of these rare earth deposits, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the map, are towards the eastern side of Ukraine, very near the war zone. Russia does not want NATO to be designated, or excuse me, Ukraine to be designated a NATO nation, because then you have the articles of NATO requiring that if one is attacked, they all have to respond. It's not that NATO is going to invade Russia. It's that Russia doesn't want to deal with the fact that they want Ukraine, and they don't want to have to worry about whether NATO is going to force to respond due to the articles of the NATO convention. That being said, they want what's in there. And so they tried to take ground that covered these rare earth minerals. That was one of the reasons they wanted the country. That being said, too, here comes the United States. I'm talking about with the air horn, just rolling in. Well, not under the Biden administration. What did they do? How much money do you want? I don't know. We're just in it for the long haul. We don't have a plan. We don't need plans. What's the plan? Well, the plan is, how much money do you need? We're in it for the long haul. That was the plan for 4 years, 3 years. Now you got President Trump, who has really, I'll paraphrase it for you, he has looked at Zelensky in the eye and said, we've given you a buttload of money, and we expect something in return. And here's the thing. We're not going to make you a NATO nation. That's off the table, by the way. That's off the table. It's been said that's off the table. We're not going to make you a NATO nation. But what I will do is this. We need rare earth minerals. You've got them. We'll come mine them, and we'll give you half of what comes in because of it. And we'll put that, if you don't mind, we'll put that into a fund. So we're not going to fund corruption in your government. What we're going to do is we're going to fund a reconstruction fund that will be administered like a trust fund for the people of Ukraine. And it will be a reconstruction and rejuvenation fund that brings in new industry and helps rebuild what's been torn down. Oh, by the way, now Russia's got to deal with the fact that, oh crap, it's not NATO, but it's an absolute U.S. interest. And that really jimmies up their works. Really jimmies up their works. So I'm just telling you, this was friggin' 4D chess right here. This was Trump saying, art of the deal. Here's something. We spent billions over there. How about we get some of that back? Oh, I don't know. How about we do it this way? And that'll also jimmy up Russia's ability to be aggressive. And oh, by the way, it'll help restore what's in Ukraine. That's where we are. I think it's a brilliant move. The deal was signed yesterday. The deal begins to move forward immediately. Ukraine has deposits of lithium, graphite, manganese, which are used in electric vehicle batteries. We've got massive ability to take out deposits of titanium, which we use for making aircraft wings and other aerospace manufacturing. We got uranium, which can be mined in massive quantities, which is for nuclear power, medical equipment, and for weapons for that matter. And then, I guarantee you, Trump's going to say, hey, you need some more weapons? We sell those. That's what he's going to say. And Russia's going to go, crap.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I mean, when we talked yesterday about the one up, one down, what was my down? That the Ukraine conflict hasn't been solved yet. Like, I'm very much as annoyed that this hasn't been, solved yet, although I'm going to say I don't think it's on Trump's side. Like, Trump has been working tirelessly and got this deal done when you look at, and I know he said, well, stop talking about Biden, but look back, Biden, his strategy was give the money, give the money, give the money. Like, I'd much rather have a president who's working on it and getting deals like this done, even though it wasn't done in one day, whatever. I think that the signing of the deal is a great sign of progress. So I would take progress over no strategy, just give them money until we bankrupt ourselves.
Yeah, and here's what's going to happen now. I agree. And here's what's going to happen now, too. In the negotiations, Witkoff, the envoy that Tyler from New Jersey doesn't like, is going to look at the envoy from Russia and say, you realize that's our mine now.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to stay up off our mine.
Yeah.
Russia's Medvedev, Dmitry Medvedev, senior Russian security official, said that the signing of the mineral deals between Ukraine and the United States is really just, Donald Trump forcing Kiev to pay for future U.S. military aid. You think? You think? I mean, like he's saying that like this is a bad thing. It's bad for Russia. Yeah, this is absolutely an arrangement that has been made. This is brinksmanship. Go look up the word if you're not familiar with it, Tyler. Go look up brinksmanship. What you just saw was actual brinksmanship, where you posture on the world stage in such a way that the others don't know what to do with you. They can't work around you. They can't get past you. And they recognize you have just one-upped them, and you did it without firing a shot. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, tell you what else have I got in the stack? I had so much about Russia, Ukraine, and then I got waylaid by, I kept talking about Michael Waltz and other things. But I will say this, J.D. Vance did make the comment, and I've got this piece from The Hill yesterday. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Vice President Vance said that Russia and Ukraine do face a very big gulf as the two countries make demands to negotiate the end of the war. Ukraine just made a big deal with America, and that's good for Ukraine. That's also good for Ukraine's ability to have peace, because now we have one more piece of leverage against Russia, like don't screw with our mining. President Trump has sought to cease fighting and get Russia and Ukraine to agree to a deal, says thehill.com, but Vice President J.D. Vance says they still got a long way to go. They got up to 5,000 people dying every single week. Think about that. 5,000 a week. You don't even know the half of the combat that's been going on the front lines. This is World War II epic level combat.
I mean, if you're one of the types that likes watching, footage of what's going on, it literally is trench warfare, World War II, World War I stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I don't think people realize it's just a meat grinder.
And we have not seen like tank-on-tank warfare like we're seeing over there since World War II. And we've had some episodes, but nothing like this.
Drone warfare in trenches is horrifying too.
Oh, it's a proving ground right now. It's a proving ground for new technologies to include craziness. Listen, Ukraine is doing some crazy stuff, like going and buying basically Walmart drones, strapping grenades to them and turning them into little suicide bombs and flying them over the trenches and dropping them on top of Russian soldiers.
It's terrifying.
The EU, according to Reuters, the EU is readying a plan B should Trump walk away from Ukraine talks. I don't think Trump's going to walk away. I think he's going to stay on top of it because he wants that mineral deal too. The European Union, though, is preparing a plan B. Well, they better. How about this? Here's an idea, European Union. Why aren't you part of plan A? Where's that headline, Reuters? Why is the European Union preparing a plan B and America has to come across the ocean to do the plan A? And yet, European Union preparing plan B on how to keep economic sanctions against Russia should the Trump administration abandon the Ukraine peace talks and seek rapprochement with Moscow. Russia's going to get something out of this. They are. Let's just be honest. Russia's going to be told they can keep Crimea and no one will ever question it again. Russia might keep a little bit of the Donbass region. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But Russia's not going to get to keep the war, all right? Russia's not going to get all of Kiev and all of the rest of Ukraine. Russia's not going to get to say its borders now are back touching Poland. It's going to have to pull back, and the fighting's going to have to stop. But the idea that the EU, which this is their turf, the EU is plan B? God almighty. How about EU please be part of plan A? That'd be huge. All right, listen, I got a ton of text messages, and I'm going to grab a few right now and then go to a break. Badger from Athens says, do you think we'll put a base or a military presence in Ukraine now? I don't know. There's been a promise that we would not put our own boots on the ground. But here's what I think, Badger. I think that there will be a peacekeeping force. It'll be mostly European, maybe some African, believe it or not. I think the United States, though, is going to bolster. You watch. The United States is going to say, we're not in Ukraine. But yet you're going to see major new basing in Poland right next door, and you're going to see major new basing probably in the Baltics. So stand by for that. But I don't think we'll put it in Ukraine proper because I think that would be too provocative. Matt from Madison said, I'm so tired of the bleeding hearts wanting to discount and ignore the last 4 Sleepy Joe years as if he had nothing to do with where we are now. Yeah, exactly. John from Brownsboro says, I love the rope-a-dope that Trump pulled on the media. I think they suspected a mole on Waltz's staff was causing the signal mishaps and couldn't pinpoint who it was, so they fired all of them and gave him a more public position now that's not as sensitive and a new staff altogether. We'll see. Jim from Huntsville says, Senator, the rare minerals deal with Ukraine may have potential to improve tariff leverage over China, too. Jim, great point. I had not even gone down that road yet. All right. You just expanded my horizons. Good job. Lynn from Tanner, Alabama says, looks like Shag is a jellyhead. Okay. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, Kamala Harris had her little online speech the other day, and she was talking in 3-word sentences like she was addressing kindergartners. But then again, I had to think, well, she is addressing Democrats. So they're on the same grade level. Joe from Elkmont says 99.999% of your thousands of listeners just grew even less fond of New Jersey. Robert from Hazel Green says, Tyler sounds like you might dress up in girls' underwear and read dirty books. To little kids. Okay, no, I don't think so. I hope not. All right, we're taking a break. I'll get a few more text messages. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Real quick, I'm going to the phones. Mike from Harvest is on the line. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Senator Williams. And yourself, sir?
I'm good, man. What's on your mind?
Well, I don't know whether you saw the piece. I'm sure you probably did, about where Britain tried to set up a coalition of the willing for peacekeeping purposes, and they wanted 64,000 troops from Europe, and they couldn't even muster 25,000.
Yeah.
And almost all those would be rear area folks doing training and rebuilding.
Yeah, I think it was Germany came out right away and said, yeah, we're not doing that. But if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was Poland. Maybe it was Poland that said we don't intend to.
Yeah, Poland said no.
Yeah, that's
Germany
what it was.
also said no. So it was like basically France and Britain.
Yeah, France and Britain. I still have great respect for the British. A little bit less so for the French. But the two of them. Listen, I'm glad they decided to try and verbalize a plan A on their own, turf. But the fact that they got the tepid reaction they did is a clear indicator that the European Union would let this war go on forever.
Yeah, I mean, most of Europe couldn't even. I mean, they were talking about maybe, they couldn't be much more than at best a speed bump to Russia coming west if it could. So.
Well, more to come on it, but yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. That was a great point about the European nations, Britain and France, not getting the support they needed for a coalition of the willing. It was almost funny if it wasn't so sad. But hey, Mike, thanks for the call. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks, Senator Williams. You have a wonderful day, sir.
You too, buddy. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says Lee from Huntsville, JP, and Phil all get a B+. Wow. Which means today's winner with an A+ is obviously the spectacular Butters. Butters wins.
Wow.
He said, congratulations, and Tyler from New Jersey gets the Imaginary Clown of the Day award. By the way, Alabama's former football coach is obviously a Democrat because you can check the internet and you'll see positive comments he's made about Hillary Clinton. Oh, no.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah,
he's making a joke. The joke is apparently he was telling his players not to associate himself or themselves with, girls who were, trying to ruin their lives. And he goes, for example, if I was going to cheat on Miss Terry, it would be with Hillary effing Clinton. And then they all laughed and whoever. So that was the comment he's talking about. He didn't actually support Hillary Clinton.
Sounds like support to me.
No,
Sounds like support to me.
I don't think so.
What I just heard was support. Okay, Mike from Florence says, what does putting the wood to him mean? It means like they got paddled. They got the stick. All right, so there you go. Shag Nasty checking in real quick says, man, bad grammar on my part today. He says, you guys have roughly the same talking points as Levin, except he's perpetually on the verge of an aneurysm and Phil is chill. Chill Phil. Fascist apologetics either way. Fascist apologetics. I like the fact you know the word apologetics of it. That's a big word. Thanks, Shag. Merle from Hartzell says, sent the Trump joke. Oh, wait, sent a Trump joke. What's the Trump joke? Where is it? I'll get the Trump joke tomorrow. Okay. All right, listen, we're done. And by the way, Trump's speaking in Alabama tonight. We'll see if we get a Trump endorsement for Tommy Tuberville. Phil Williams saying, hey, there's more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.